The arrival. The skies darkened over New York City as the massive alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Their sleek obsidian hulls reflected the panicked city lights below, creating an eerie light show that danced across the Hudson River. Air raid sirens wailed, their haunting cry echoing through concrete canyons as millions of New Yorkers stared up in disbelief. Major Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force stood atop the observation deck of the Empire State Building, her fingers wrapped tightly around a pair of high-powered binoculars. She watched as the lead ship, easily the size of Central Park, came to a halt above the city. Smaller craft swarmed around it like angry hornets, darting between skyscrapers with impossible agility. "This is it," she muttered, her voice barely audible over the chaos erupting in the streets below. "First contact, and they brought an army." Her comm unit crackled to life. "Major Chen, you're needed at HQ immediately. The Security Council is convening an emergency session." Sarah acknowledged the order and made her way to the express elevator. As the car plummeted towards the ground floor, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in her stomach. Humanity had long debated whether they were alone in the universe, but no one had expected first contact to come in the form of an invasion fleet. At UEDF headquarters, buried deep beneath the streets of Manhattan, Sarah found herself in a room with the most powerful people on the planet. World leaders, military commanders, and scientific experts all gathered around a holographic display of Earth, red dots indicating alien ships appearing over every major city across the globe. General Marcus Blackwood, a grizzled veteran of countless terrestrial conflicts, addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing an unprecedented threat. These aliens, whoever they are, have technology far beyond our own. Our satellite networks have been disabled, our communications are scrambled, and our most advanced weapons seem to have little effect on their shields." A murmur of despair rippled through the assembled leaders. Sarah felt her jaw clench, refusing to give in to the hopelessness that threatened to engulf the room. "With all due respect, General," she spoke up, her voice cutting through the tension, "we can't just roll over and die. There must be something we can do." All eyes turned to her, some curious, others skeptical. General Blackwood nodded for her to continue. "We may be outgunned, but humanity has always thrived when our backs are against the wall. We need to think outside the box, use our creativity and adaptability to find weaknesses in their defenses." Before anyone could respond, the room shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling as the sound of distant explosions reached them even through layers of reinforced concrete. "They're attacking," someone shouted. A holographic display flickered, showing real-time footage from cities around the world. Paris, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, all were under assault. Alien energy weapons carved swaths of destruction through urban centers, while Earth's military forces seemed powerless to stop them. In orbit, the international space stations and defense satellites were swatted aside like annoying insects. Humanity's proudest achievements in space exploration were reduced to debris in a matter of minutes. As the assembled leaders watched in horror, a new signal cut through the chaos. The main view screen in the command center flickered to life, revealing the alien commander. Its appearance was unsettling, vaguely humanoid, but with iridescent scales covering its body and multiple sets of eyes that blinked in an unnerving pattern. "People of Earth," the alien's voice boomed, somehow translated into perfect English. "I am Supreme Commander Zaxlith of the Garnax Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. Your weapons are useless against our technology. Your armies are insignificant. Surrender now, and we may show mercy." General Blackwood stepped forward, his face a mask of defiance. "This is General Marcus Blackwood of the United Earth Defense Force. We will not surrender. This is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have." The alien commander's multiple eyes blinked in what might have been amusement. "Your bravery is admirable, but misplaced. Allow me to demonstrate the futility of your resistance." The view screen split, showing a live feed from just outside Earth's atmosphere. A single Garnax warship approached the planet's most fortified military installation, the Luna base on the Moon, Earth's last line of defense. "Observe," Zaxlith said, his tone dripping with condescension. The Luna base unleashed its full arsenal, railguns, plasma cannons, and antimatter warheads. The barrage of firepower was impressive, a testament to humanity's best military technology. For a moment, hope flickered in the eyes of those watching. But as the smoke cleared, the Garnax warship remained untouched. Its shields shimmered slightly, having absorbed the full force of Earth's most powerful weapons without so much as a scratch. "As you can see," Zaxlith continued, "your most advanced weapons are little more than firecrackers to us. Now witness true power." The Garnax ship's main cannon began to glow with an otherworldly energy. A beam of pure destruction lanced out, striking the Luna base. In an instant, humanity's greatest military achievement was vaporized, leaving nothing but a smoking crater on the lunar surface. Gasps and cries of despair filled the command center. Sarah felt her heart sink, but refused to let it show on her face. She knew that now, more than ever, humanity needed to stand strong. Zaxlith's face reappeared on the screen, his alien features twisted into what might have been a smirk. "That was but a fraction of our capabilities. You have one planetary rotation to surrender unconditionally. After that, we will begin systematically destroying your cities until you submit or are eradicated. The choice is yours." The transmission cut off, leaving the room in stunned silence. General Blackwood was the first to speak. "We need options, people. I don't care how crazy they sound. We are not going down without a fight." Sarah's mind raced. The aliens' technology was beyond anything they had ever encountered, but there had to be a weakness, something they hadn't considered. She thought back to her studies of military history, to the times when inferior forces had prevailed against seemingly insurmountable odds. "Sir," she said, an idea forming in her mind, "the aliens may have us beat in terms of technology, but they don't know us. They don't know our history, our tenacity, our ability to adapt. We need to use that to our advantage." The general looked at her, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "What are you suggesting, Major?" "We need to think unconventionally. Guerrilla tactics, psychological warfare, anything that they won't expect. And we need to pool our resources, not just military, but scientific, industrial, everything. If we can't match their technology, we need to find a way to turn it against them." As she spoke, Sarah could see the spark of determination reigniting in the eyes of those around her. The initial shock and despair were being replaced by a steely resolve. "Major Chen is right," the President of the United States said, stepping forward. "We've faced extinction before, from our own making and from natural disasters. Each time, we've come back stronger. This is no different. We will find a way." General Blackwood nodded, a grim smile on his face. "All right, people. We have less than 24 hours before the Garnax make good on their threat. I want every scientist, engineer, and tactician working on solutions. Nothing is off the table. Major Chen, I want you to lead a special task force. Your job is to think of the most outlandish, unexpected strategies you can. Anything that might give us an edge." As the room erupted into action, Sarah felt a mix of fear and excitement. The odds were stacked against them, but humanity had a secret weapon that the Garnax couldn't comprehend: the indomitable human spirit. Outside, the alien ships loomed over Earth's cities, their presence a constant reminder of the threat they faced. But in bunkers, laboratories, and command centers around the world, humanity was mobilizing. The greatest minds and bravest souls were coming together, united in a way they never had before. The clock was ticking. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity prepared to show the galaxy exactly what they were made of: the underdog's ingenuity. As the 24-hour deadline approached, the world held its breath. In hidden bunkers and hastily repurposed research facilities, Humanity's brightest minds worked tirelessly to find a way to combat the seemingly invincible Garnax forces. Major Sarah Chen stood in the center of a bustling underground laboratory, surrounded by a motley crew of scientists, hackers, and unconventional thinkers. The air was thick with tension and the acrid smell of overbrewed coffee. "All right, people," Sarah called out, her voice cutting through the din. "We've got less than 6 hours left. I need updates." Dr. Aisha Patel, a brilliant quantum physicist with wild, unkempt hair, stepped forward. "Major, we've been analyzing the energy signatures from the Garnax ships. Their shields operate on a frequency we've never seen before, but we think we've found a pattern." Sarah leaned in, hope flickering in her eyes. "Go on." "Their shield technology seems to be based on a form of quantum entanglement. It's incredibly advanced, but it's not infallible. We believe that if we can create a large enough quantum disruption field, we might be able to create momentary weaknesses in their defenses." It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sarah nodded. "Good work, Dr. Patel. How long until we can test this theory?" Aisha's face fell slightly. "That's the problem. Creating a quantum disruption field of that magnitude would require more energy than we can currently generate." Before Sarah could respond, a voice piped up from the back of the room. "What if we don't need to generate it ourselves?" All heads turned to face Zach Torres, a scruffy-looking hacker who had been recruited more for his ability to think outside the box than for any formal qualifications. Zach stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Look, these aliens, they're pumping out massive amounts of energy, right? What if we could hijack their own power sources to create the disruption field?" The room erupted into a flurry of discussion. Scientists argued back and forth about the feasibility of the idea, but Sarah could see the spark of possibility. "All right, quiet down," she shouted. "Dr. Patel, work with Zach. See if you can find a way to make this happen. We need a prototype ASAP." As the team got to work, Sarah's comm unit buzzed. It was General Blackwood. "Chen, get to the war room. We've got a situation." Minutes later, Sarah stood before a massive screen displaying a global map. Red dots representing Garnax ships blinked ominously over major cities. General Blackwood's face was grim. They'd started their attack. Rio de Janeiro was hit first. The screen shifted to show live footage of the Brazilian city. Where once stood the iconic Christ, the Redeemer statue, now there was only a smoking crater. The city below was in chaos, alien energy weapons carving paths of destruction through streets and buildings. Sarah felt her stomach churn, but she forced herself to focus. "What's our response, sir?" "We're mobilizing everything we've got, but conventional weapons are still useless against their shields. We need a game changer, Major. Tell me you've got something." Sarah quickly briefed the general on Dr. Patel's quantum disruption theory and Zach's idea to use the aliens' own energy against them. Blackwood nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "It's a long shot, but it's the best we've got. I'm giving you full authority to do whatever it takes to make this work. But Chen, we're running out of time. Cities are falling." As if to emphasize his point, another alarm blared. Lagos was under attack. Sarah saluted and rushed back to the lab. The scene that greeted her was one of controlled chaos. Scientists and engineers worked feverishly, holographic displays flickering with complex equations and schematics. Dr. Patel looked up as Sarah entered, her eyes wild with a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "Major, we think we've cracked it. Zach's idea. It's crazy, but it might just work." Sarah listened intently as Aisha and Zach explained their plan. They had designed a device, a quantum siphon, that could theoretically tap into the Garnax ship's energy fields, redirecting that power to create a massive disruption wave. "The trick," Zach explained, "is getting close enough to one of their ships to activate it. We're talking point-blank range." Sarah's mind raced. Getting that close to a Garnax ship seemed like a suicide mission. But if it worked, "How many of these devices can you make?" she asked. Dr. Patel consulted her tablet. "With the resources we have, maybe a dozen in the next few hours." It wasn't much, but it was a start. Sarah nodded, determination setting her features. "Do it. I'll coordinate with the general to get strike teams ready." As the scientists set to work, Sarah reached out to resistance cells around the globe. The plan was audacious: simultaneous strikes on Garnax ships in multiple locations, using stealth and distraction to get the quantum siphons in place. Hours ticked by. Cities fell. The Garnax pushed further inland, their superior technology laying waste to humanity's defenses. But in hidden bunkers and secret labs, hope flickered to life. With less than an hour to go before the Garnax deadline expired, Sarah stood before a group of volunteers, a mix of soldiers, pilots, and civilians who had stepped up to undertake what might well be a suicide mission. "I won't lie to you," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility. "This is going to be dangerous. Many of you may not come back, but what you're about to do could save our entire species. You are the best of humanity, and no matter what happens, history will remember your courage." As she spoke, she could see the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. These were people who had seen their homes destroyed, their loved ones threatened. They were ready to fight back. The plan was set in motion. Around the world, small teams armed with the hastily constructed quantum siphons prepared to strike. In New York, Sarah would lead the assault personally, targeting the massive ship that still hovered over Manhattan. As they made their final preparations, Dr. Patil approached Sarah, holding out a small device. "This is the trigger for the quantum siphon. Once you're in range, press this button. It'll create a disruption field that should last about 30 seconds. Make them count." Sarah nodded, tucking the device securely into her tactical vest. "Thank you, Aisha, for everything." With a final glance at her team, Sarah gave the signal. It was time. Across the globe, humanity launched its counterattack. In London, a team used the underground tunnels to get beneath a Garnax ship. In Tokyo, skilled pilots in retrofitted civilian aircraft darted between skyscrapers, drawing alien fire as a ground team moved into position. In New York, Sarah led her team through the ruins of Lower Manhattan. The once bustling streets were now a war zone, littered with debris and the remnants of failed defense attempts. As they approached the alien ship, Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. This close, the vessel seemed to blot out the sky, its hull shimmering with otherworldly energy. "Now!" Sarah yelled, and her team sprang into action. Diversionary explosions rocked nearby buildings, drawing the attention of the Garnax ground forces. Sarah and a small group used the chaos to slip closer to the ship, dodging energy blasts and leaping over rubble. They were almost in position when a Garnax patrol spotted them. Energy weapons flared to life, the air crackling with deadly force. Sarah dove behind an overturned car, the metal sizzling where alien fire struck it. She could hear the shouts of her team, the screams of the wounded. But they couldn't stop now. They were too close. With a deep breath, Sarah vaulted over her cover, sprinting the last few meters to the ship. Alien energy blasts sizzled past her, close enough that she could feel the heat on her skin. And then she was there, pressed against the cool, alien metal of the Garnax ship. Her hand shaking, she pulled out the trigger device. "I hope this works," she muttered, and pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Sarah's heart sank. Had it all been for nothing? Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing apart, a wave of energy pulsed outward from the device. The air shimmered, and for a brief instant, Sarah could see the intricate patterns of the Garnax shield laid bare. All around the world, similar scenes played out. In a dozen cities, brave men and women activated their devices, creating a global network of quantum disruption. For 30 crucial seconds, the impenetrable Garnax defenses flickered and failed. And in those 30 seconds, humanity struck back with everything they had. The turning point. The world held its breath for 30 seconds that felt like an eternity. In that brief window of vulnerability, humanity unleashed a counterattack that would be remembered for generations to come. As the quantum disruption field shimmered around the Garnax mothership in New York, Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the global command frequency. All units, fire at will. This is our shot. Make it count. Across the globe, military forces that had been lying in wait sprang into action. In orbit, hidden satellites previously thought destroyed revealed themselves, unleashing a barrage of experimental weapons. On the ground, tanks and artillery that had been rendered useless by Garnax shields now found their targets. The sky lit up with explosions as humanity's weapons finally found purchase against the alien invaders. Garnax ships, caught off guard by the sudden failure of their defenses, began to fall from the sky. In New York, Sarah watched in awe as the massive ship above her shuddered under the impact of Earth's counterattack. Chunks of alien metal rained down on the city, and for the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. But the Garnax were not about to go down without a fight. As the quantum disruption field faded, their remaining ships regained their shields and began a furious counterattack. The air filled with the scream of energy weapons and the thunder of explosions. Sarah's comm unit crackled to life. It was General Blackwood. Major Chen, status report. Ducking behind a pile of rubble as alien fire streaked overhead, Sarah responded, "Sir, the plan worked. We've dealt them a significant blow, but they're regrouping fast. We need to press our advantage." "Understood, Major. We're seeing similar results worldwide, but we've got a new problem. Our long-range sensors are picking up a massive energy surge from the Garnax fleet in orbit. Whatever they're planning, it's big." Sarah's mind raced. They had hurt the Garnax, but not defeated them. And now the aliens were preparing some sort of countermove. They needed a new plan, and fast. "Sir," she said, an idea forming. "What if we could use their own weapons against them?" During the disruption, I got a good look at their ship systems. With Dr. Patel's help, I think we might be able to hijack their energy weapons. There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Then, do it, Chen. Whatever you need, you've got it. This might be our last chance." As Sarah relayed her plan to Dr. Patel and her team back at the lab, the battle raged on around her. The streets of New York had become a war zone, with human soldiers and Garnax troops locked in fierce combat. The once proud skyscrapers of Manhattan were now little more than skeletal frames, their windows shattered and their facades scared by energy blasts. In the sky above, the massive Garnax mothership was wounded but not defeated. Its hull was breached in several places, venting atmosphere and debris, but its main weapon systems were still operational. And now, ominously, it was gathering energy for what promised to be a devastating attack. Back in the underground lab, Dr. Patel and her team worked feverishly to modify the quantum siphon based on Sarah's observations. The device that had allowed them to disrupt the Garnax shields might now be the key to turning the aliens' own firepower against them. "Major," Ash's voice came through Sarah's comm, strained but excited. "We think we've got it. The modified siphon should be able to redirect the energy from their weapons. But there's a catch. We need to get it installed directly on their main energy conduit." Sarah's heart sank. Getting aboard the alien ship seemed impossible. But as she looked around at the devastation, at the brave soldiers fighting against overwhelming odds, she knew they had to try. "Understood, Doctor. Send the schematics to my team. We'll find a way." As Sarah gathered her strike team, reports came in from around the world. The initial success of the quantum disruption attack had given humanity a foothold, but the Garnax were rallying. In London, Paris, and Beijing, alien reinforcements were arriving, threatening to overwhelm the human resistance. Time was running out. Sarah's team made their way through the war-torn streets of New York, dodging alien patrols and helping civilians where they could. As they approached the base of the Garnax mothership, the scale of their task became apparent. The ship loomed above them, a dark monolith of alien metal that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "How the hell are we supposed to get up there?" one of her soldiers asked, voice tinged with despair. As if in answer, the ground shook violently. A few blocks away, a Garnax dropship had been hit by human artillery. It was falling, its anti-gravity systems failing, on a collision course with a nearby skyscraper. Sarah's eyes widened as a plan formed. "There's our ride," she said, pointing at the falling ship. "Move." The team sprinted towards the descending alien craft, weaving through debris and weapon fire. They reached it just as it crashed into the side of the building. Its hull breached, but its systems still partially functional. "Everyone in," Sarah ordered, leading her team into the damaged dropship. Inside, alien consoles flickered with strange symbols. Sarah's mind flashed back to the briefings they'd received on Garnax technology. It was a long shot, but she placed her hand on what she hoped was the main control interface. To her amazement, the ship responded, its systems recognizing her as a pilot. "Hang on," she yelled as she directed the battered craft upwards, towards the mothership. The dropship shuddered and groaned, threatening to fall apart at any moment, but it rose, carrying them towards their target. As they approached the mothership, alarms blared. The Garnax had noticed their approach. Energy weapons began to target them, the air around the dropship heating up as near misses scorched its hull. "Brace for impact," Sarah shouted as she aimed for a breach in the mothership's hull. The dropship slammed into the larger vessel, tearing through weakened armor plating and coming to rest in what appeared to be a massive hangar bay. Dazed but alive, Sarah and her team stumbled out of the wreckage. They had made it aboard, but now they were deep in enemy territory. "Move fast, stay quiet," Sarah ordered as they made their way through the alien corridors. The inside of the Garnax ship was a maze of pulsing energy conduits and strange, organic-looking technology. Following the schematics provided by Dr. Patel, they navigated towards the ship's main power core. Along the way, they encountered pockets of Garnax resistance. The alien soldiers, caught off guard by the humans' presence on their ship, fell to precisely aimed gunfire and hand-to-hand combat. Finally, they'd reached the central chamber. A massive pillar of swirling energy dominated the room, feeding power to the ship's systems and its devastating weapons. "This is it," Sarah said, pulling out the modified quantum siphon. "Cover me while I install this thing." As her team formed a defensive perimeter, Sarah approached the energy pillar. The air crackled with power, making her hair stand on end. Carefully following Dr. Patel's instructions, she began to attach the device to the alien technology. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Garnax had realized the threat. Energy blasts began to pepper the chamber as alien troops poured in. "Major, hurry," one of her soldiers shouted, returning fire. Sarah's hands moved faster, connecting wires and aligning components. The device hummed to life, interfacing with the Garnax systems. On her tactical display, she could see the energy readings spiking. It was working. Just as she made the final connection, a stray energy blast struck near her position. The force of the explosion threw her across the room, slamming her into a wall. Dazed and in pain, Sarah looked up to see a Garnax soldier looming over her, weapon raised for a killing blow. In that moment, time seemed to slow. She could hear the shouts of her team, the roar of weapons fire, but it all felt distant, muffled. Then, suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. The energy pillar pulsed, and arcs of power began to leap from conduit to conduit. The Garnax soldier stumbled, its weapon discharging harmlessly into the ceiling. Sarah's tactical display lit up with notifications. The quantum siphon was working, redirecting the ship's immense power against itself. And not just this ship. The effect was cascading through the entire Garnax fleet. As Sarah struggled to her feet, supported by one of her team members, she watched in awe as the Garnax mothership began to tear itself apart from the inside. All around them, systems overloaded and exploded. "We need to get out of here now," Sarah shouted. Her team, battered but alive, began to fall back towards their entry point. As they ran through the disintegrating ship, Sarah activated her comm unit. "General Blackwood, this is Major Chen. Mission accomplished. The Garnax fleet is compromised. Requesting immediate evac." They reached the hangar bay just as the ship's structural integrity began to fail. Through the breach they had created earlier, they could see the New York skyline, smoke rising from 100 battles. "How are we going to get down?" someone asked. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. "We jump." And as the Garnax mothership began its final, catastrophic descent, Sarah and her team leaped from the dying vessel. They fell through the air, watching as the massive alien craft crashed into the Hudson River, sending up a plume of steam and debris. Their fall was arrested by the sudden appearance of friendly aircraft. A mix of military choppers and civilian vehicles pressed into service. As they were pulled to safety, Sarah looked out over the city. The sky, which had been dominated by Garnax ships for days, was now filled with falling debris and the contrails of human aircraft. On the ground, she could see Garnax troops in disarray, their command structure shattered by the destruction of their fleet. It wasn't over. There would be more battles to fight, more sacrifices to make. But in that moment, as cheers began to rise from the battered streets of New York, Sarah knew that the tide had turned. Humanity had faced its greatest threat and emerged victorious. The Garnax had mocked Earth's arsenal, but they had fatally underestimated the ingenuity, courage, and sheer determination of the human spirit. And now, as the sun began to rise on a new day, it was clear that this would be remembered as the moment when humanity proved its worth among the stars.